distinguishing sensory and behaviour. Let's do that one first, and then the last one is about reading. Okay, so how do we distinguish between sensory and behaviour issues? This is a big one.
This is a big one, and it's a very tricky one as well. It's very different for each child. But my go-to signal is to observe that child. So if I'm seeing if there's just a lot of sensory input in that environment, and suddenly they're going into a shutdown, or suddenly they're freezing, and that's definitely a meltdown, and that's how we know that it's a sensory issue. That there might be something that's triggering that child to be behaving, to be reacting that way in that environment. Whereas behavior, it's more maybe like task avoidance, or suddenly you go into a tantrum. I don't want to do this. I don't want to come here, or something like that. Or
so just to kind of so go back to the situation I was telling you about. So I think that, and this is clearly for me, this is behavioural from this particular child, was they come into my room, they want a specific toy. I say to them, okay, and they ask for it, and I say, great, okay, let's sit down first, and I'll give you the toy. They don't want to wait, so then they throw themselves on the floor, blah, 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 cry. And then this is the same child who then, doesn't like new tasks, so then will kind of task avoid, will run over to the table, pretend to kick the table. And when I say like pretend, I mean they'll do like this, and then like, oh, I'm in so much pain. Which I like drama school for you. So for me, things like this, especially when they're looking at you and they're pausing and they're looking for a reaction from you,
then that's when we know it's behavior instead of sensory meltdown.
I always also my kind of go-to, I'm not OT and I'm not specialised in this area, but my kind of go-to explanation between the difference between those two is sensory, the child can't control it. It's an overwhelming situation, and they're basically shut down. They don't have any control of it. They wouldn't be aware of anything in their environment at that time because they've just really kind of like shut down essentially. Whereas behaviour, you'll see them, and you see this a lot of times. You'll see them like, and you're like, that's, and for me, that's kind of a very layman's sort of terms of me trying to describe to parents.
And trying to, it's them trying to get their way.
It's more about like, I want something and I'm not getting it, so I'm going to throw myself on the floor, versus something like, these lights are really, really stimulating me and I can't cope with it.
It's just this. The noises are just too loud. It's a noisy environment, and I cannot tolerate this. So I go straight into meltdown.
So go into like shutdown mode.
Those are some of the things that you can look out in order to differentiate between sensory and behavior. But again, you could look into maybe discussing this with your therapist, and then to understand further whether it is really sensory or behavior.
And I think kind of every situation would be slightly different, so it's good to just observe the child and discuss with your therapist. It's really, really important. So now we come to the last question, which was so I kind of switched the last two questions. How do we teach reading to autistic children with GDD? Do you teach reading? Not my specialty.
But we do work on, OTs do work on skills, underlying skills that would be needed for reading. So that would include things like visual perception. So the child would have to be able to make out the different shapes and copy and imitate forming those shapes. So this requires a lot of visual perception skills. And again, reading also requires attention skills as well, being able to sit down and a little bit of visual skills like tracking, being able to spot words with sight words or something. Those are some of the underlying skills that OTs would work on in order to support reading skills.
For speech, then I'm not a literacy expert. I'm more on autism. I work a lot more with the autistic population. But for me, if we are kind of doing those pre-literacy skills, then it's working on the phonics, kind of working on the sounds. So, children can often name the letters of the alphabet, but they don't associate the sound A with the letter A. So then I just and it's through a lot of modelling. I don't necessarily directly teach them. This is the letter A. Its sound is A, but Sorry, this is the letter A. The sound is A. I don't necessarily, directly teach that. But if they love alphabet, maybe, and they're doing an alphabet puzzle, they're going A, B, and I'm going, that's right. A is for apple, apple, and I'm just modelling it to them, just to give them that very kind of foundational, phonics, those skills.
And I think a lot of these modelings also can happen at home as well as at school as well. But we do sometimes. When we have the opportunities, when we know that the child is learning phonics at school, and then we will try to integrate that in our therapy sessions as well. Maybe like when they're going swinging, I would say like go, something like that. We try to again generalize that skill and have that modeling going on in different environments. I do exactly the same sort of thing. And so I don't necessarily teach reading per se, and also because a lot of times if a child was on the spectrum and had GDD, they're going to be in a special education setting, and it would be more of an academic thing is to learn the reading skills. Like it would be taught under the academic setting by the special education teachers. So I would just kind of follow up by doing kind of things like the phonics, maybe later on working on some phonological awareness. So beginning sounds, final sounds. So what did you hear? What sound did you hear? And then I use a lot of gestures and cues and things like that to work on kind of initial sort of blending sounds together to make words like at. And then making the word cat. It's a cat, yay! But I think the reading for like learning how to read, for some children, it would be more on the special education teachers as opposed to necessarily. We would work with them, but it wouldn't be our specialized skill. So I would usually have the opportunities to model that skills when I'm working on their handwriting. So when we're doing maybe practicing on our letter formations. So for example, if we were to do letter formations in the sand or in using colored rice, and then we would trace that. So we would trace that letter and also modeling phonic sounds of that letter. So those are some of the opportunities that I model reading skills to my clients. In OT sessions.
So same. And there was just one question that was in here, and it was about speech and language therapists, and it just said, where can we find the list of speech therapists in our area, and is there any certain qualifications to look for? I think I'm actually sporting today my MASH, my Malaysian Association of Speech and Hearing mask. So I would recommend, maybe we could help put the link or something after this video. If you check out mash.org, and that will give you a list of qualified speech and language therapists. And it's divided up into whether they're speech and language therapists or audiologists, because we're kind of combined in this group. And it's also divided up into states, I guess. Am I right in saying? Which states? So like I'm trying to think of the states. So it's kind of divided up into that, so then you can see, and it should have contact numbers and emails. How about the OT? Do you have a group?
We do have a group. We have that Malaysian Occupational Therapist Association website up. So if you want to look for qualified OTs, all of them are listed in there. But we're also building a database, if I'm not mistaken. So in my network, we're trying, some of the people are trying to build out a database like how yours are. So we're doing states and then contact number and then their name. So you could contact maybe one of us if you guys need that document, and I can share it through.
Yeah. With regards to qualifications, then if you do have any concerns about, the qualifications of one of your therapists, then I think I say this all the time to parents. It's okay, ask us. You're allowed to check our credentials, like 100%. We want you to be comfortable with us because we trust us. Work, very closely, right?
Yeah.
And there are, unfortunately, I think, it's not well regulated,
in Malaysia.
So then you do get people doing therapy who are claiming to be therapists, but they're not actually qualified. One of my kind of gripes would be sometimes the fields do crossover, and you have ABA therapists practicing speech therapy, but they don't have a speech and language therapy degree. So that's what you should be looking for is, at the very least, an undergraduate degree in speech and language therapy.
Yeah. Same for occupational therapists as well. In Malaysia, we're not that well regulated, but a way for parents to be sure that they're seeking therapy from therapy services from qualified professionals. So you can definitely please check their credentials before going on board with their services.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions.
Yeah, that's all the questions. We thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you for the questions. We hope we got our answers through. And
we hope we answered everything. If there's any more, then you can, ask away and
shoot us an email.
We can be right back here doing it again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.